Here we go. Take two. Welcome to the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. My name is Demetrius. We start every podcast acknowledging the Godfather, the super producer extraordinaire, Mr. Mike Ward. We're coming to you week 11, the National Football League season. Lions home facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming in 8-1 off of what people thought was a lucky win. But this is a podcast for fans of the Detroit Lions, fans of Detroit sports, family members who support me, friends who want to check it out. So I appreciate everybody who's joined. If you like it, if you want to give a thumbs up, heart, subscribe, all that stuff's cool. But I cheer for the best team in the National Football League right now. So we're jumping right in, rocking remote today. Appreciate you joining us. So today, what we saw, and one of the things in this podcast, if you are new to the podcast, is I reference people close to me, people who I share this journey with. And this year, being a Detroit Lions fan is a journey. And I have to keep telling everybody, guys, we got to enjoy this. And a lot of times, so I will reference people. I will reference my brother, Kenny, all the time. I'll reference friends, Chris, Art, James. I will reference people I know. That's the kind of podcast this is. I'll reference my son, who'll be watching it and he'll kick me out of, oh my God, when he sees a score or something like that, right? So that's the kind of podcast this is and always will be. It's a passion project. I love doing it because I love this football team. And so with all that good stuff said, today, what I watched was a grown man beating up a little baby and taking his candy. That was that, and I shouldn't laugh, right? Because in reality, if you watched a grown man actually take candy from a baby, you wouldn't enjoy it. It wouldn't be funny. You wouldn't allow it to happen. You would do something about it. But after Houston, and what a lot of people described as a lucky win, or maybe a win they didn't deserve, stuff like that, which, Art and I have a saying, we don't apologize for any win. We just don't. We will not apologize for a win. So today, because I'm remotely, I'm on the road, I'm gonna this one won't be long. I'm gonna hit a couple of points of the game, and then we're gonna do 3 questions. We're just gonna pull 3 questions off of social. If you got something in the comments, if you want to post it on the Facebook, we can pick them up. So he's going through questions, and we'll pick a couple of those and hit them. Because today is like, as a podcast goes, what do I do? This was really one team that was clearly better than the other, and the good team showed up and did whatever they wanted. Right? That's what we saw today. They had 7. They is the starters. I don't know if they might have played early in the 4th, but the starters had the ball 7 times and they scored 7 touchdowns. I could say this is the best game I've seen the Lions play. The opponent has something to do with it, but using Art and Mai's rule of we don't ever apologize for a win, I felt like last week's win was pretty impressive, considering the team they were playing, the situation, getting down. I was actually a fan of last week's win. I was. So with that said, 52-6, I think it was the final. It was just, I've heard the words demolition. It was just a dominant game that the team played, and for them to play as well as they played, it was at times a tough watch, right? Because both teams show up with a job to do, but one of them is significantly better than the other one. So it's really, really tough to watch the other team try so hard, largely in vain, because there was just nothing Jacksonville could do today. The Lions did whatever they wanted. So first 3 drives looked super easy. What you saw was a championship level team playing a team that's not a championship level team. But sometimes the work is not to go and struggle and fight. Sometimes it's to go and handle your business. You're the better team. Go do your job. And that's what we got to see today. So 7 drives, 7 touchdowns, kind of unheard of. Goff was 24 of 29, 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. Yeah. So what do you do data wise? Is he Jared Goff last week? Is he Jared Goff this week? Is he closer to one than the other? Uh, you know, you know how I feel about Jared Goff. I think as far as the game goes, the Anzalone injury sounded like it could be serious. I think that one of the things I noticed is every difficult play, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, important play in the game, it feels like we all know what's going to happen, and Jacksonville's defense couldn't do anything about it. Talking to friends I was with, I said, we know who's getting the ball. It's 14. We know who he is. Everybody in the league knows who Amon-Ra St. Brown is, and somehow every big play, it doesn't seem to matter. He finds a way to get open. Goff finds a way to get him the ball, gets him the ball, and he gets the first down or whatever they need. And it's really interesting for me to watch now. And if you're watching this, you're either a family member supporting me, and I thank you, or a football fan, maybe a Detroit fan, a Detroit sports fan, and I appreciate the support. Or you're someone who really is a fan of this team, right? And I've always said this podcast is a passion for me. It's something I love. I do it because I enjoy it. For fans of the Lions, this is new territory, right? You hear them talk on the radio about it and different people, and you see 6, 7, 10,000 people will fly to Houston to go to games. You'll hear Jared Goff's name getting chanted in other teams' stadiums. We don't really understand any of this, right? I am a cornbread eating, Kool-Aid drinking fan, and I don't understand what's happening. And when I'm sitting there with my friends today, and we're looking at this game, and we don't know what to say because, wait, this is our team? We see other teams do this. We have watched other teams do this. So there's a bit of that going on now that's pretty impressive. So today it's not hard to do. My team won by a gazillion points. So it's not a hard podcast to do. There's nothing interesting for me to break the game down. Sometimes I'll break the game down. I think that the Lions did everything they wanted today. Everybody played well. I can't point anybody out. Gibbs was great. Montgomery was great. St. Brown was great. J-Mo was great. Of course, Jared Goff was great. Right? There's a few guys who didn't play well. Zadarius got a sack. There's nothing to do there. You guys saw it. You know what it is. I don't need to give you my lame breakdown of what actually happened. So I just want to get a couple of questions in, see what we think about it. If you got some comments, drop them in the comment section. We're going to be really interactive today because, I mean, it's kind of what they deserved. I think this was an almost flawless game, but it was against a bad team. So I'm not losing sight of who we played. I don't think, I almost said, I don't know if we're that good, but we might be that good. And I am the fan who uses the royal we. If you're one of those people who don't like that, too bad. Okay, let's jump into 3 questions, and we might keep it a little short and sweet today. Okay, first question: what's the biggest threat to the Lions getting to the Super Bowl? Oof, right off the top, I don't think there's a real threat. Oh no, the threat is themselves. The enemy of success is complacency. If they get complacent, if they get arrogant, full of themselves, right, they could slip. But I don't see that. And that is Dan Campbell. I don't see that. This is the most complete team in the league. Offense, defense, special teams. I think the Ravens lost to the Steelers today. The Steelers are good. If you watch the Steelers and you honestly say, I don't think the Lions can beat the Steelers, okay, first of all, if we play the Steelers, it's in the Super Bowl, and I like my chances. I like the Steelers. Do I think they're like my friend Bill Carroll, an unstoppable killing machine? I don't think they're that. If there's an unstoppable killing machine in this league, it might be the Detroit Lions, right? I think that 14-3, I originally called for a 13-4 record, changed it, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. My brother jumped in with 15-2. Kenny might be at 16-1 at this point. At some point, Kenny said 15-2. Now I'm almost giving Kenny a call, asking him if he's got room on that bus. But this is an elite team. They have a roster full of very good players, and then they have a handful of elite players. This is just strictly on talent on the field. If you believe most of the time the most talented team wins, They have elite talent. They're not just okay. They have elite talent. Brian Branch is elite. Hutch, when he comes back, is elite. Penei Sewell is elite. St. Brown, Frank Ragnow, they're elite. I mean, these are guys who are best 3 or 4. And you can disagree with me. There's a comment section. You can jump in and tell me I'm wrong. I think the dudes I named are all pro level, easy Pro Bowlers. Wait, all those guys might have went to the Pro Bowl last year, except Branch. But healthy Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers in the league. Can you argue St. Brown or Sewell or healthy Hutch? And I think Brian Branch has established himself this season as an elite safety. The offensive line as a unit is elite. And despite what a lot of people, I don't think they don't believe it or they just don't want to say it, but I'll say it because I believe it. And if I were in my home studio, you'd see the 16 jersey. Jared Goff's elite. I'm not saying that just because of today. There's data points. If you do what a real quality, and I work in quality assurance for those who don't know, if you were taking a distribution, you would commonly take out the worst number and the best number and take everything else and say, what's the average of those? Because you don't want those outliers. If you say today's an outlier, then what do we do about the 18 for 18 in Minnesota? Or is Minnesota the outlier and today is who they really are? I will take out Houston. I wouldn't take out Houston. I'm going to explain Houston. No, I'm not. Jared Goff's an elite quarterback. If you don't believe that, oh well. And then just below elite, they've got a handful of guys that are really good. Aleem McNeil is a really good player. Carlton Davis is really good. Kirby Joseph had an interception today. He is bordering on elite. He might be elite. Our punter, probably elite. I might have dismissed his skill set. A healthy Jack. Sam Laporta, elite. Decker and Bates are really, really good. Bates is 15 for 15. He might be the best kicker in the league. I don't even know. But listen to all, I just named like 12 or 13 players that are very, very good or elite. And this defense hasn't allowed 2 touchdowns in a game this season. Subtle little under the radar stat. The defense, really good. Because our defensive coordinator, sorry, Art, my friend Art, he may have come around. Art, if you're listening, let me know if you've come around. We might have an elite defensive coordinator. We're also busy crowning the offensive coordinator as the genius of all geniuses. There's a chance we have an elite defensive coordinator. What he's done the last 5 weeks without Hutch. And again, I hope they didn't lose Anzalone for a long time, but it sounded serious. So my answer, the shorter, much shorter answer is themselves. Complacency, lack of a challenge. That's why there's this part of me that believes another loss wouldn't be the end of the world. They've won 8 straight games. There's a psychology piece that says a loss would give them a reminder of the taste of losing, which could relight a fire. Except, I think if you ask anybody in Jacksonville, Florida, they don't need a fire lit under this team that played today. So in terms of the overall analysis of how did they get there, I don't see how they don't get there. I have a good friend, James, who's an Eagles fan. And I told James, the Eagles worried me. But if the game's in Detroit, I'm not worried. He said, you don't need to worry about the Eagles. So we're not worried about the Eagles. Who are we worried about? If you're worried about Minnesota or Green Bay, I will remind you we've defeated both of those teams in their buildings already. If you're worried about the Commanders, they lost to the Eagles. I don't know. You're asking me to worry about the Bucks because they beat us in week 2. This Detroit Lions team is not the same Detroit Lions team that played in week 2. They're just different teams. If you're asking me to worry about Atlanta, no. I thank you, but I will not worry about Atlanta. So I think that as I sit here, and I know who I am, I admit for anybody who's new, I'm not biased. I don't do bias when it comes to this football team. My perspective on this team is always, I don't do unbiased. I am completely biased. It is always optimistic. The name of the podcast is the Cornbread and Kool-Aid Podcast because I eat silver cornbread and I drink blue Kool-Aid every day. That's who I am. Comfortable with it. I know what it is. It's all good. When your team is this good, this podcast becomes a little more fun. This is year 6 of this podcast. It has not always been this fun. It has not always been this interesting. But the only thing I'll say, not trying to sound like I'm above it all, is this is a journey. We got to enjoy the journey. I enjoyed today's game. As much as it did look like a grown man beating up a baby and taking its candy, I enjoyed it a lot. So let's enjoy the journey. Answer to your question is nothing. The only team that can beat the Detroit Lions, in my opinion, is the Detroit Lions. If we turn the ball over, if we make mistakes, if we get our own hubris, our own arrogance is what has the potential to derail what, again, my friend Bill Carroll, shout out to Nuts and Bolts Sports. Check it out. He's good at what he does. Bill Carroll would call an unstoppable killing machine. And the Detroit Lions are really good. They're good on the field. They're good in the coaching staff. They're good in the owner's box. I know, don't say anything good about somebody with the last name Ford. Got it. The organization is really good. All right, next question. After the day, is Goff back in MVP contention, considering last week's 2 interceptions? I guess that's a legitimate question. First of all, I don't really care about individual awards. I'm going to say Jared Goff probably doesn't care about individual awards, although he'll take the trophy, and I think there's a check that goes with it, as a sense of he'll never admit it. But okay, for those listening who don't understand the Jared Goff story, the Detroit Lions quarterback Jared Goff story, there is a piece of this that what an MVP would mean is when the Rams gave up on him and subsequently won the Super Bowl the next year, everybody said, great move, Rams. That was the right move. You did a great job. And I get it. They got Stafford and they won a Super Bowl. What that looked like in the Goff household was, hey, Jared Goff, you suck. Hey, Jared Goff, you're the reason we can't win. Hey, Jared Goff, you're not good enough. Jared Goff, you are the reason the Rams can't win a Super Bowl. And if you're a human being with any degree of ego, maybe, or maybe just pride, that's the chip that's been on Jared Goff's shoulder for 3 years. So now when you go to games, you go to hockey games, and no football team's playing, and they're chanting his name. When they're chanting his name on the road, right? You have to understand the redemption story this is for that particular player. And for me, obviously, if I were in the home studio, you would see the 16 jersey hanging behind me. I love it. I am here for Jared Goff being the MVP. The answer to your question is, I don't think last week's game should have hurt him that much. But after today, 20 for 29, 412, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, all due respect, is that a real question? Of course, he's one of the most valuable players in the league. And if you think about the true sense of the name of the trophy, most valuable, if you take that guy off his team, how much does it impact the team? Because we're not saying best player. There's an award called Player of the Year for that. This award is called MVP, most valuable. Now, after the speech I just gave about how elite the Lions are in talent, it seems like I'm contradicting myself now to say without Jared Goff, they're nothing. I don't think, but I did see Hendon Hooker play last quarter. All due respect to Hendon Hooker, Jared Goff's really important. I have said in past podcasts that I think Frank Ragnow is the most important player on this team. Still might believe that. And to say that one player is more important inherently sounds like you're diminishing other players. And that's why it's tough for me to do. So the award's the award, fine. Answer to your question is, it depends on how you look at quarterback play. I've done in the past a podcast where I've talked about how I view quarterback play. I think it can be broken down relatively easy. Two things: the decision and then the throw, right? Objectively speaking, is he making the right decisions and is he making the right throws? The decision is about, I might have talked about this last week, coming out of the huddle, pre-snap reads. What kind of defense are they lined up in? What do we want to do? We call 2 plays in the huddle. Are we running the first one or the second one? and then their movement, and then you snap the ball and you see what the safety's doing. You see what the linebacker's doing. What do we do? I have said, and I say it again, I stand by it, despite last week, pre-snap and post-snap reads, I don't think there's a better quarterback in the league. I can pull numbers. So if you want to put in a comment for me to prove it, I can bring numbers next week. Jared Goff's the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion, at pre and post snaps. When you see him step out and yell, kill, 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 he has seen something that says, first play's not going to work. Let's go to the second one. He's the best in the league at it. Top 2 or 3 in the league. And then there's the throws. So the guys you hear about, we're just talking arm talent. Can I make that throw? Can I throw that route? And there are guys with better arm talent in the league. Jared Goff be the first one to tell you that. Patrick Mahomes has an elite arm, some God-given project. Matthew Stafford has an elite arm. Sometimes psychologically, when you have the arm, it tells you I can make that throw because I've got that arm. That decision can burn you, because if you think you have that arm to make that throw and you don't nail it, bad news. Jared Goff, that decision making, I know my arm, can I make that throw? You saw a couple times a day, and other times he'll just throw the ball. It looks like he's just throwing it in the ground. That's not an arm talent. That is a decision. Jared Goff says, first guy wasn't there, second guy wasn't there. I can throw it at the feet of my running back. It's only first down. I leave the play second down. That's elite level decision making. Doesn't matter. But then I see him throw these darts. One to St. Brown, that was a 20-yard touchdown, 20-something yard touchdown. One to J-Mo, that was a touchdown. He threw one to J-Mo earlier in the year, crossbody, in the air, probably 60, 65 yards. Arm talent's there, right? Jared Goff is not the arm talent guy, but he is an elite level decision maker. That's why I think he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league. Last week, those 5 picks, if you're honest and you actually watched it and you didn't just hear about it, you will know the first 2 were flukes. They were tips, batted balls, abnormal plays that don't generally happen. Third one was a Hail Mary. Abnormal play doesn't happen. So now you're really not talking about 3. You're talking about a 5. You're talking about 2. And of the 2, I've heard this week that J-Mo admitted he didn't run his route to the right depth. So J-Mo took responsibility for one of the other 2. So now you're telling me, truthfully, of the 5, Goff's kind of responsible for 1. First 2 were probably offensive line. Third one was a Hail Mary. And then J-Mo didn't run his route to the right depth. When you do your homework and you really look at it, last week's an aberration. Last week doesn't bother me. I'm not even thinking about it. I didn't think about it the next day. I think I told somebody the next day, largely because they won the game. And Art Wright has a rule. We don't apologize for wins. We never apologize for wins. So I was over it as soon as the game was over, largely because they won the game. So much shorter answer to your question, he absolutely is one of the most valuable players in the league. As talented as our roster is, as much depth as we have, without Jared Goff, we're not nearly as good a football team as we are with Jared Goff. So absolutely, he should be in the MVP race. He should be considered. He deserves it. And you know I'm campaigning, of course. So, all right, one more. Where are the other 2 losses to get you to 14-3? So this is somebody, I guess, mocking me, right? Because I settled in 3 or 4 weeks ago and said, I'm planting my flag. This is a 14-3 football team, right? I thought it was going to be controversial. I thought there would be people arguing. I thought I would get pushback. All the feedback now and during the week on the podcast has been, where the hell do you see 2 more losses? Which is not what I thought it was going to be. It's the opposite of that. I thought people were going to start saying, okay, because a few weeks ago, we had a trip to Minnesota coming up. We had a trip to Green Bay coming up. We had a trip to Houston coming up. We still got Buffalo, right? Now they've run that gauntlet, if you want to call it that, completely unscathed, sitting at 9-1. If we objectively say what are the tough games left on the schedule, I will say Buffalo. We'll see what happens today. Buffalo and Kansas City are going at it now. I think Buffalo's a good team. I said earlier already, I don't think there's any team the Lions can't beat. That game's in Detroit. I think one loss comes at the end when they don't care. If they win in San Francisco, or they go into San Francisco, even 13-2. They're 13-2 going to San Francisco. Although, let's say they beat Buffalo. They don't. Let's say they're 14-1 going to San Francisco. So you got it at San Francisco and Minnesota your last two games, and you're 14-1. This may be where we're going. Do you start sitting guys? Do you consider giving Goff a week, even 2 weeks off? Do you worry about rust? We've never had to have that conversation. Do we sit guys to keep them healthy? We've never had to have that conversation. If there's two losses, honestly, I would lean toward at San Francisco and Minnesota at home, weeks 17 and 18, because we've clinched the 1 seed and those games don't matter to us. So we're resting Jared Goff, or we're resting Gibbs or Porter or whatever. That's where you can get one of them, maybe two. If we run the table and we're 14-1 going to San Francisco, I'm fine with those guys getting 3 weeks off because they'll get those 2 games in a bye. But 3 weeks is a long time. I don't know if you want to get 3 weeks off. So my guess is because we are about pettiness, we're playing in San Francisco. We got unfinished business. So they're playing in San Francisco. So my feeling is, one, you play everybody in San Francisco. And then if you're 15-1 for the last game of the season, then you go to the doctors and say, who needs a couple weeks off? Who needs a couple weeks off? You don't care about that Minnesota game. From a logic standpoint, that's what it is. I feel like your question is, who can beat us? So all jokes aside, well, wait, I've already answered this. Nobody except us. Maybe your question is, who am I most concerned about legitimately defeating the Lions? My answer is still the Detroit Lions. But to play the game, to truly answer the question, and I do appreciate the question, this team is complete. This organization is locked in. Aiden Hutchinson was running in a pool yesterday, or walking in a pool. 4 weeks after surgery. I don't think it was about, look at me, I can walk in a pool. I think the message was, I'm coming back this year. And this team, and subtly on a radio show earlier this week, Dan Campbell's so awesome. He was talking about guys' health, and he said, we got 11 more games to play, right? And the radio guys and myself driving in my car was like, wait, that math doesn't work. I was like, oh, wait, he's counting a bye week, 2 playoff games, and a Super Bowl. Dan Campbell knows what he has. They know who they are. They know what they're capable of. And to me, last week's win was impressive because you didn't play well on the road against a really good team, and you never crumbled. Old Lions teams crumbled. You never crumbled. You just kept plugging away, and you ultimately found a way to win on the road against a really good team. Today's win was fantastic for even a simpler reason, which is, what's harder? Go play a good team on the road and get a win, or come home, play a team you're more talented than, and handle your business. Don't get sloppy. Don't get comfortable. Don't get complacent. 7 drives with the first unit, 7 touchdowns. And I promise you, 52-6 was the final score, but it wasn't that close. And I'm not even being funny. That was execution at a very high level from one team who knew they were better. And they're so locked in. They're so locked in right now. I'm waiting for the slip up. So again, short answer to your question, I am now on a bus labeled 15-2 and it is largely because I think they'll have everything that matters locked up by the time they go to San Francisco. And I think they want the win in San Francisco to make a point, much like they ran it up on Dallas and yet offensive linemen reporting. This team is petty. They remember every slight, and there are receipts. The GM is wired that way. The head coach is wired that way. I wouldn't be surprised if Sheila's wired that way. They're keeping receipts. We remember everything. So we know we owed Seattle and we took care of that. We knew we owed Dallas and we took care of that. Chicago, we owe you. We owe you. Yours is coming. San Francisco is certainly on that list because that day last January, the better team on the field that day was wearing blue, not the team that won. So Andy brings up a good point. Right now it's about health. I don't generally, Andy, get worried about being healthy because I just think you can't control it. Every team and you just can't control it. If it happens, because I think 5 weeks ago, if you'd have said to me, who's the one guy they can't afford to lose? I might have started with Frank because I just think Ragnow's really, really good. Underratedly good, even though I think he's a 3-time Pro Bowler. I would have said Hutch. They lose Hutch is a wrap. And every fanatic level fan reacted that way. You heard stuff about he's got to go out and make a trade or this team's done. They can't get pressure. And guys were talking about win rate. And Aaron Glenn leaned back in his chair, said, somebody hold my beer. We'll go win 3 out of 4 games on the road. We'll beat Dallas. We'll beat Minnesota. We'll beat Green Bay on the road without Hutch. Because he schemed up pressure. Oh, no, that's not sustainable. Okay. Brad Holmes was in his office, leaned back, told Dan Campbell, hold my beer. How about Zadarius Smith? Good. Okay, let's do that. I'm not concerned about any level of thing that can be controlled. Health, and Andy's right. If Goff goes down, okay, I'll be the dude calling the radio saying it's a wrap. I won't say, oh, we should have had a better backup. I won't say that because you can't control that. And there are people who do. You should have a backup quarterback who's capable of stepping in and playing as well as your starter. Hello? How many of those guys are in the league? They're not. And if he was that good, he'd be somebody else's starting quarterback. I think Andy might just be making a simple point of the only thing that can stop us is injury. That might be his point. If that's your point, Andy, I agree. Another injury could derail us. But what I saw today was an organization that's locked in, a coaching staff that's locked in. Ben Johnson was locked in. Aaron Glenn was locked in. Every player on the field. Anzalone quietly would be a loss. That's a good player. That's a good player. But I think that you saw top to bottom, not just football team. What you're watching now, what we've never watched, is an organization that's collaborative. They're in sync. They're locked in. What they want, clear to everybody. How to get there, clear to everybody. The mentality of the organization as a whole is clear to everybody. And you're seeing execution at a really high level. And I know who they played today. I know who they played. They played an NFL team with really good NFL players today. They might not have a coach anymore. It's an hour after the game. He might already be fired. But I really think that watching them execute as well as they are, seeing the different ways they win, because they have won games where last week, offense, in theory, didn't play well. The defense did everything they needed to do to get a win. All right, I'm told I need to cut down on the Kool-Aid, right? None of my statements today, Andy, and others, are based on the Jacksonville game. This is stuff I was saying last week. This is stuff I was saying 2 weeks ago. To me, the Dallas was important from a fun, get them back, they owe us standpoint. Tennessee was what it was. Minnesota was the game where I said to myself, this team has a resilience. I'll take grit, whatever word you want to use. There's something about this team that I'm not sure it matters who they play, where the game is, the weather. And then Green Bay was the confirmation of that for me. So since Green Bay, and then Houston was the litmus test. Like, am I wrong? So for me, it was Minnesota was the moment. Green Bay was the validation. And then Houston was like, okay. That's how I got here. If I'd have done this podcast 6 hours ago, I would have said much the same things. And in fact, all honesty, I spotted somebody 20.5 points. Just a friendly beverage wager. I gave him 20.5. I think I might have offered him 23.5. We settled on 20.5. And he owes me a drink. We'll put it that way. So the Kool-Aid is always flowing. That's tough for me to stop, Andy, but it's a decent request. But right now, the team we're watching, I would ask you, Andy, I'd ask anybody listening, who beats them? Who on the schedule can beat them? Because if you say Baltimore or Kansas City, you recognize you're talking about the Super Bowl, right? So tell me who beats them. If you like Philadelphia that much, okay, you just like them more than I do. I think Philadelphia's okay. I think Philadelphia's good. No, I think they're talented. But if I offered you Saquon Barkley in exchange for Gibbs and Montgomery, would you make the deal? I don't know. If I offered you the receiving core, straight trade, St. Brown, Laporta, J-Mo for Zach Ertz, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. That's probably a conversation. I'm sure there are people who might do it. I would not. If I offered you Jalen Hurts straight up for Jared Goff today, the guys who are fascinated with running quarterbacks would make that deal in a heartbeat. And that's fine. I've done a whole segment on running quarterbacks. The short version goes, when you rank the important things for a quarterback, in my opinion, first thing is his right arm. Everybody, that should be number one. Second thing for me is not his feet. It's the thing I talked about earlier. It's up here. Pre-snap, post-snap, play action. Does he make good decisions with the football? And Jared Goff goes to the right location with the football at a crazy high clip. He doesn't throw the ball to the wrong place. Now, because he's not elite on the first thing, sometimes it flutters. Sometimes it's short. Sometimes it's wide, but not often. Leads the league in percentage, right? His touchdown to interception ratio, especially if you take out last week, got to be top few. The third thing is leadership. Somewhere down the list is his ability to run. Can he scramble and get you 7? Okay, when you need 6. Okay, that's great. I'm sorry. I'm going to take the elite thinker over the elite runner, right? And again, Andy makes up a great point. I wouldn't change anything about this team either. I would bring Hutch back. That's the only change. I just don't see. I don't see a real weakness. I don't see another team that on paper can beat them, like matches them talent wise. The big difference to me in the Philly matchup is the coach. I like our coach way more than I like their coach. So the Philly matchup would be, to a degree, talent, and I think talent's comparable. And yeah, we're at a point where in week 11, I'm talking 1 seed. I'm talking NFC Championship game. And I've said many times, if that game last January is 24-7 at halftime and the game's at Ford Field, they go to the Super Bowl, right? That's the next step. This year, make sure that game's at Ford Field. And that's what a 9-1 team looks like. Looks like the best team in the conference. In my opinion, the best team in the league. Looks like the NFC Championship game. You got to take a flight to Metro Airport. Have fun. Maybe you fly in the city. I don't know. But you got to fly into Metro Airport to get to the NFC Championship game. So if you want to attend the NFC Championship game, you should start booking your hotels in Metro Detroit, because that's where that game is. Short of something I'm missing, or the point Andy made about health, which you can't control, that game's in Detroit this year. So that's really, today was light. I didn't do much. I almost feel bad, and that sounds arrogant to say I feel bad for that other team. But this team is playing on a level, I'm going to say Andy and I have never seen. A level they've never played at. This is the best Lions organization that's ever existed. This might be the most talented team. Like the 91 team had some talent. Had Barry, had Benny Blades, Chris Spielman. They had some talent on the Lomas. The 95 team had talent. Herman was on that team. I think that team had Sue and Fairley. No, that was a 2014. There's been some good teams. 95 team had Brett Perriman and some others, but I don't think there's been a more talented Detroit Lions roster, top to bottom, in my lifetime. So, yeah, I think I'm going to close out today simply with a trip to Indianapolis, then home to the Bears on Thanksgiving. Right? I'm not jumping the gun. It's so hard not to jump the gun. I spent the whole podcast talking about the Super Bowl. Let's go to Indianapolis, take care of business. It should be similar to today, maybe not as bad, Indianapolis might be a little better, and it's on the road. Go on the road. Just continue to show everybody who you are. You run the ball well. You pass the ball well. You defend well. You punt well. You kick well. You coach well. Other than that, this team sucks. So I'm excited. I think this is a Super Bowl caliber team. That doesn't take cornbread and Kool-Aid to get there. I think they're fun to watch. I just have my one piece of advice. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. We're watching something special. We're witnessing something that's never happened. We're seeing something as it's unfolding. Don't get so caught up in the end that you're not enjoying the ride. I enjoyed today's game so much. I enjoyed to get it because it's just to watch your team be great, to dominate, to execute, and know it's not a fluke. We're better than everybody. That's how I'm going to close. We're better than everybody. So we're going to have to beat ourselves, or to Andy's point, have some bad things happen injury-wise. Other than that, it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for watching the road edition, right? The road edition of the Cornbread and Kool-Aid podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I like the hearts. I like the thumbs up. Tell somebody about it. It's fun. This is my team. Passion for me. Any support is greatly appreciated. Always thank and acknowledge Mike Ward, the super producer extraordinaire, the godfather of the podcast is what I call him. And I hope you enjoyed the game as much as I did. I hope you have a good week. And I hope we catch each other again next Sunday with a very similar conversation about the game in Indianapolis. So, there's Mr. Wright. Oh, wow. So I'm not going to close my things yet because I see Art now. Art just chimed in. Art, I need you to type in, and I'm going to wait and bore everybody. This is me and you. 1 to 10. How good is Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator? So quick backstory while he's going to give me his answer. Art, I need an answer. 1 to 10, how good is Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator? Because this has been our exchange. Art and I have been friends for 30 years. We exchange messages during the game. Similarly with my brother. Kenny's messages are not suited for air, so I can't talk about them on the podcast. But for 2 years, maybe, I want to say middle of 21 until middle of last year, every game, one of the messages from Art was they need to fire Aaron Glenn. And so it kind of became our little inside joke now where I will just say, Art loves Aaron Glenn now. So, Art's answer, ladies and gentlemen, is a 9. So he did put a very good this year. That's just been one of our cool inside jokes. With my good friend. Again, thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. Apparently, Aaron Glenn's job is safe because Art just stamped him for approval. We'll see you next week after Indianapolis. I think, again, I'm looking to do a similar show. I'll change to wear a different shirt, but I think we're going to have a similar show next week. I'll still be traveling, so I will be from a similar location. And enjoy your week. That's a great game. Have a good night. We will see you soon.